Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Yuri and welcome to Early Cycling. Today we're going to be talking about normalized power. Normalized power tries to quantify the physiological cost of an effort or your entire ride. Sometimes average power can be misleading. For instance, if you're racing a crit, you will most likely be coasting for a couple of seconds out of each corner. And if it's a super technical crit, over the course of an hour, you may be coasting for a large portion of time, upwards of 7 minutes. On the other hand, if you happen to be riding a climb or several climbs, on the way up, you will be pedaling the whole time, but on the way down, there may be significant amounts of coasting. And all those zeros or low power efforts really stack up over a ride. So you may have finished these rides or races and been like, wow, that was really hard. And then you look at your average power and go, it doesn't look too bad. I shouldn't feel this beat up. Why is that the case? So this is where normalized power comes in. All right, so once again, we are in Training Peaks, and for now, I'm going to show you where you can find the normalized power metric. So we're going to click a workout I did a while back here. If you click the Analyze button here, this will take you into your chart section area here. And what we're going to look at is in the top right corner here where it says entire workout. You can see the normalized power for the entire workout was 224. And the average is 177. So you can see it's significantly higher than the actual average power. Now, if we actually look at the workout, we can highlight certain sections. So for instance, we will highlight from this section to here, and we can call this just the working set. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just to showcase the differences. Now here, the average power is 226, and here the normalized power is 253. And the effort total is 30 minutes. So you can see here, it got a little bit narrower, but again, normalized power is still a little bit higher. And if we go one step further and select just the last interval set there on its own, we will get a new average of 282 and a normalized power of 274. Now, you might be looking at that and thinking, why is normalized power lower? That's one of the quirks of normalized power when you start looking at shorter time frames. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, and for the next part of the video, we're going to jump into the greatest cycling analytics tool ever, Microsoft Excel. Alrighty, so this is where we left off last time with the TSS. Again, if you haven't seen the video, it's going to be either here or here. You can click the link. I do a little bit of a deep dive on TSS. What is it? The calculation, some of its use cases. But today we're going to be talking about normalized power. So there's quite a bit on screen for now. We're just going to be talking about the upper left corner here, how to calculate normalized power. So I've given us the formulas for the calculation of normalized power. You're going to calculate a 30-second rolling average of your power data. You will take the rolling average data and raise the value to the fourth power. You will take that new rolling average that was raised to the fourth power, and you will find the average of the fourth power values. You will then find the fourth root of the average value. We're going to do a little brief tutorial with a very small ride file here. I just created this ride file. It's not actually a ride file. It's exactly 5 seconds long, but we'll be looking at this section here. So if we look in the power column, you can see there's 2.5, 5, 10, 20, 40. Those will be the watts I was generating for the 40-second. Now, we have to create a rolling average. Now, since it's only 5 seconds, we're not going to be able to create a 30-second rolling average. But what I have done here is created a 2-second rolling average. So you might notice the first cell comes up as nothing. There's nothing there. But if you look at the next cell, it's 3.75. What that is, we took the first power output of 2.5 and 5. We got the average of that. It's 375. The next value, 7.5, comes from 5 and 10. And so forth. The next value of 15 comes from 10 and 20, and then 30 comes from 20 and 40. Okay, so this is now created a rolling average. You then take the rolling data and you raise the values to the fourth power. So if you look at that cell over here, we now see we're raising each of these values to the fourth power. And you can see here, this is like really huge values. So raising something to the fourth power means you just take that number and multiply it by itself 4 times. So in this case of 30, it's 30 times 30 times 30 times 30. That becomes 810,000. That's a huge number. If you think about it, this is only 30 watts. Imagine you're doing a ride outside and you're pedaling at 200. These numbers become like astronomically huge. Going back to the formula, we're going to find the average of all these values. It becomes this number here, and then we are going to find the fourth root of the average value. That brings this huge value here and brings it down to something a little bit more normal. Now I've also done just the average power. So if you highlight this segment here, this is the average power. What I have below here is an entire endurance ride, a micro session, and a race file. The issue here is if you look at all of these data points, it's second for second data. So literally we're starting at second one and going to the very last second. That being said, if we take an hour, that makes 3,600 data points because there's 3,600 seconds an hour. And for the actual race file, there's several hours. So there's more than 7,000 data points, not 700,000. I'm not going to be scrolling through all that because that would just be too much. But I did import the ride file so we can take a look at the math. And I've also graphically displayed as well, which I think is really helpful to see how some stuff is just visually, because you could talk about the numbers all day long. And honestly, sometimes it just goes in one ear and out the other. We will just do a brief overview of what we calculated here. But again, so if you look here, we're going to scroll down slightly just to the first 29 values. And you might notice here for our endurance ride, everything is NA. So this is the actual first 29 seconds. And then for the 30th second, you can see we got a rolling average. So this number is just taking the first 30 seconds, and that's how it's generated average. Now, because they're all zeros, it's going to show up as 0. Had I actually been putting out power for the first little bit, something would have come up. So in each one of these instances, the race file, the micro session, it's doing the same thing. First 30 seconds, there's no data. After that, it's taking from seconds 1 to 29, and the 30th, we get a value. The next value after that will be from second 2 to 30, and the next value will be from second 3 to 31, and so forth. I plotted out here what my endurance ride looks like. So you can see here the blue lines are my power output, and the orange line is my 30-second rolling average. So you can see here, it does quite a nice job, and actually the rolling average sort of smooths out the highs and lows instead of just showing everything. So that's one of the use cases of the 30-second rolling average. For the next example, we are going to be looking at our micro session. You can see here again, the blue represents my actual power data, that's second per second data, and then the orange line represents my 30-second rolling average. Now, when you look at the 30-second rolling average, you can see how the normalized power calculation differs from average power. Earlier, I mentioned that average power can be very misleading. If you're racing a crit, every 20 to 30 seconds, you may be coasting for a half decent amount of times, and over the course of an hour or several hours, those zeros really add up. Because it uses 30 data points to get one data point, it eliminates a lot of the zeros and coasting. So where normally you would see coasting or 0 power value, all of a sudden in the 30-second rolling average, it just doesn't exist. You then take this new data series and you boost those numbers to the 4th power value. Now, I'm not going to graphically show you that because, again, these numbers are going to be like insane. There would really be no point in looking at the chart. It'd just be a total mess, but you have to do that. I've also included a more high definition chart of the last interval set in this workout, and you can see here how the 30-second rolling average does compared to my actual power. So where I would be banking a lot of zeros or very close to 0 power values, the 30-second rolling average takes those numbers into account and sort of discards them. Okay, and for our last Excel slide here, we have my 2023 year. What this is showing is my average power, so from 1 second to my longest ride, which looks to be 2.5 hours here, and you can see my peak power is about 1600 watts, and I start, and we're going to use this value here, it's about 190 watts at 2 hours and 12 minutes. What you can also see is my normalized power, and for a certain time portion, my normalized power is actually lower than my average power. And as mentioned earlier, you're not always going to want to use normalized power. There's a time and place for it and how you use it. Going back to the earlier example in my micro session, because the time segment was so short, my actual average power was higher than my normalized power. Because again, the effort in and of itself was not long enough to get a good normalized power. There are other quirks with normalized power is some athletes are able to actually get a higher normalized power than their FTP, sometimes far surpassing the 40 to 60 mark, or what most people deem as their FTP, or the duration they can hold FTP. A large portion of time, this is for riders who are anaerobically gifted and are able to produce many high power outputs repeatedly with only a little bit of time in recovery. However, if you ask these athletes to hold this power value steady state, they may not be able to hold it for even 8 to 10 minutes. Using myself as an example, the normalized power at the 90-minute mark suggests I can hold 300 watts for my normalized power. However, my FTP is only at 270, and I've yet to even hold that for an hour's time duration this year. Hopefully by the end of this video, you now have a better understanding of how normalized power works, how it's calculated, in what instances you may or may not want to use it. As always with metrics, there is a time and place to use it, and they can be extremely complex. The information I'm providing is of great benefit to you, and it does a half-decent job of explaining some of the Training Peaks metrics. I would greatly appreciate it if you liked, commented, and subscribed on my video, as it is of no cost to you, but helps me out tremendously. All right, I'm out. Take care, and go ride your bike.